Hello everybody, this is Coach Eby, and welcome to Relaxed and Fast, where each Wednesday we dive into a wide variety of topics to help you become a better runner and person, where we try to give you a behind-the-scenes look into our program, our philosophies, and more specifics on how we develop our student athletes, and give you ideas on how to grow your routines and improve as a runner and a person. We appreciate you listening in and hope you enjoy this episode.
Hi guys, welcome back. Today we're doing an episode on middle distance training specifically. We have a special guest. It's just Coach Eby and myself, Hope, today. And then we have Sam with us. Sam Sikorski. His name's come up a couple times. The boys talk about him a lot. He is an eligibility-wise junior, but graduating early this year. So he's one of our leaders on the team. He just finished all OACs in the 1K this past season. But yeah, just welcome on, Sam.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sam. Like Hope said, I'm a junior in eligibility. I am a mid-distance runner. My favorite events are probably the 15 and 8, I would say. These past 3 years at BW have been 3 of the best years of my life, and I'm so grateful for these past 3 years, and I'm very excited to be on.
It's taken a long time to get you to say that your 15 and the 8 are your favorite events, Mr. 400 guy. Yeah.
Sam, where did you go to high school?
I went to high school at the Columbia High School. There was probably about 80 people in my graduating class. I'm very fortunate for the time I had at Columbia. Coach Bailey is, I can't even call him a coach. He's more family. I'm very fortunate to have those 4 years with him. And yeah.
Very cool. So you're the local guy for sure for us. Okay, so for middle distance, so I'm middle distance, Sam's middle distance, been here for a while.
I used to be middle distance.
Yeah, you're still middle distance.
Yeah, that's true.
At heart. At heart. So we're going to kind of dive into like what sets our middle distance training apart. We're kind of known, that's our thing. We've had Kelly Brennan, Hastings, we have lots of middle distance rich history. So kind of going into what we do and what's a little bit different. I know something that stands out right at the beginning of the week that's different about our middle distance is the long run. We still long run really far as middle distance runners for our program. Like I ran, what did I run? 12 this weekend? What'd you run, Sam?
I think 15 and a half.
Yeah, so I know that's something that's kind of unique for 800 people. You want to talk a little bit about that, Coach?
Yeah, I think a lot of what we do just comes back to strength and just building a ton of strength. The majority of our 800 runners also run cross country. I was thinking about this the other day when we kind of came up with this topic, and I've always used Nate Brannon and Nick Willis, and Cole Hocker was also a pretty darn good cross country guy, and he's an Olympic champion, and Nagoose was a pretty good cross country guy, and there's many of the women that have also, Shelby Houlihan was a pretty good cross-country person as well. And, so I just think laying that foundation of strength during the summer and the fall is really important. And then the long run is just such a huge piece to that. It's one of the most important days that we have. I consider it a workout. We meet for all of our long runs, and I think that's a big piece of it too, is that I want everybody to get together. I want the energy of the group to be there for the long runs. I want people to challenge themselves and have other people's out there. For a lot of my career, both collegiately and post-collegiately, I had to do a lot of those on my own, and I just think there's so much more to having other people out there to run the long runs with. And so that's just been a huge part of my coaching philosophy. I think just building that aerobic capacity and having a little bit of roots back into the Arthur Lydiard system. And he was a guy that, he coached a bunch of world and Olympic champions in the mile, and they were running 20-plus mile long runs. And kind of just believing in, I met Arthur Lydiard right before he passed, and he said, if you want to break 4 minutes in the mile, you better start running 100 miles a week right now. And you just think about, some of the individuals that he coached on the 800 and the mile level, and they were running those long runs. And I also think it's just a way that you can build and maintain the aerobic side of things once you start getting into this time of year where the other day we didn't run very much on the track. Like our workout wasn't very much volume. It was a lot of intensity, but it wasn't very much volume. And I think if you stray too far in one direction, that you lose a little bit of the base that helps maintain a lot of those other pieces. And so having the strength to close in what'd you run your last lap of the 1500 in your sophomore year? 62 or 3?
63.
Yeah. And ran 2:16 for your last 800. Like, the ability to do that comes from the strength. It comes from the long runs. It comes from, the tempo work that we do, and we're going to get into that. But I also think that this past weekend we got down to our last 400 meters was 5:12 pace, and our last mile, yeah.
True story.
Our last mile was flirting with six flat pace, and I think it is important to do that at the end of those runs. And I think the mental fortitude that you can build as a middle distance person, having to be out there for that long and having to concentrate at the end of a really long effort, can also translate into some of your races and that kind of stuff.
I'm gonna let Sam talk a little bit here about long run, but I know for me it was something I kind of used to totally dread. It's turned into one of my favorite days. I love getting to just go on runs and talk, and the best part's Goose is there. It's the Goose day. Goose does run really fast on long runs, though. He tends to drag us. That's not a joke. It's a joke, but it's not a joke. He pushes the pace, but it's been a good thing. Once we finally hit, what mile was it? Once we finally dipped 6:40, he was like, okay, this is acceptable this weekend. Okay, yeah. Goose. Sounds good. But here, I'll let you talk, Sam, about your long runs.
Yeah, I think I'm not, coming into the program, I wasn't really a very high mileage person. So hearing that Coach was going to be like, oh, we do 14 to 15 mile long runs, I was like, Coach, that's about what I run in a week. So it's definitely a transition. And I think that's something that's really overlooked in high school mid-distance training. I don't think it's talked about enough that you do need strength. I think one of my favorite things that you always say is strength is speed. And so being able to run with guys who run 10Ks, 5Ks, who also happen to be some of my best friends on the team, I think that's a really good aspect of the long run, being able to push yourself and feel the benefits of it. Just feeling stronger. So at first, I absolutely hated it. I thought, this is stupid. Why am I out here for an hour and a half, Coach? What is this going to do for me? But then, like you said at the beginning, coming in, my favorite events were the 400, 800, and now 15. I think the 15 is my favorite event. I couldn't come anywhere close to the times that I'm running without the long run. So I think that's just a big aspect of it.
And it's part of the reason that we've talked lots about in other episodes about why Sam and I can hop in a 5K or maybe one day a 10K for Sam. No? Okay.
Well, I do think that is part of it too, is that just the general philosophy of, I try to make all of you just better runners in general, and then at the end of the season we kind of steer towards whichever event we're trying to get ready for. And so we can tweak things and change things a little bit at the end, but ultimately I just want you all to be really good runners and be able to show up to conference and run any event.
I think even more get into that example is the better runner part you said is how we can go from being some of our best cross country runners to being our middle distance runners. That's been kind of like a transaction that we've had where Sam was one of our best guys in cross and then turned around and ripped it at Youngstown, a stupid fast mile. It's the same thing, or to win OAC's cross country and then come back and be in 800 dumb, 500. I got second in the 500 within 4 months from that. That it's something I think that you can see that whole round piece is the cross to indoor, like you said.
Yeah.
kind of talking a little bit about racing. So we have lots of different types of workouts we do. Let's start first with I'm actually, before we get into workouts, at the end of long runs, we always do strides. We do strides a lot. We always talk about finishing with something fast, whether that's workouts, whether it's long runs. We touch a little bit on some of our other episodes, but we want to talk a little bit about the importance of finishing with something fast on the end.
I heard a quote or a saying once that was essentially, a butcher doesn't just sharpen their knife once and expect it to work for the rest of the year. They constantly are sharpening their knives between cuts and so on and so forth. And so why would we spend all track season working on speed and then neglect it all summer, neglect it all fall, and then try to come back during track season and expect to be back to where we were? And so we are constantly trying to maintain that. We are constantly trying to sharpen the knife. And there are multiple different ways that we can do that. We try to, we do our speed development, which we've touched on before. And so that is one of the main ways that we really work on our top end speed, but we can also touch on it after recovery runs. And so we'll either do hill sprints or stadium sprints, or we'll just do strides. Ideally, doing, 2 times 60, 2 times 80, 2 times 100 would be in a perfect world. But when it's snowing like crazy outside and we come inside, because we have some people who can't run like Sam in a parking lot and do strides without twisting their ankle. Allegedly. But he's also had trouble with the Mondo surface as well a couple times. But we'll come back inside and get our strides in, and we have roughly 60 meters that we can do our strides in. And so we just get in what we can get in and try to turn the legs over and do that. We'll always finish our workouts with something fast at the end. So if we're doing tempo, 5K pace, 10K pace, something a little bit longer, we'll usually finish with 200s, and this is cross-country season, this is indoor season, outdoor season, in the middle of the summer. We'll finish with 200s at between mile and 800 pace, hoping that more of them are closer to 800 pace than they are to mile pace. And then once we get into track season and we start running a little bit quicker, so anything that's essentially mile pace or faster, most of the mid-distance workouts will finish with 150s. So we'll take a little bit more rest, but those are supposed to be at or maybe even a touch faster than 400-meter pace. And so I've always just felt like trying to get people to run fast with good form and turn their legs over as quickly as they can while being tired is an important skill to learn. Because ultimately, what are you trying to do at the end of a race? You're trying to change gears, you're trying to run as fast as you can. And so if you don't ever put yourself in that position during workouts or during training, then it's going to become even harder when you get into those situations during races. And so we always try to finish all of our stuff, no matter what it is, with something quick at the end.
Sam, how many times have you heard that spiel at practice?
I think I've heard it probably every time we do to any sort of tempo. So for me, it was just kind of like, at first, I was like, oh, just get through this tempo so you can do the 200s and show everyone that you're faster than them. Not really having the knowledge of that's maintenance. I thought that was, you could just keep building from that rather than taking the tempos as the most important part of the workout. I really like that Butcher quote. You're going to have to send that to me. I really like that. But, when it comes to long run too, especially, like, you don't want to do the strides at the end. Well, at least I don't ever want to do the strides at the end.
It's hard.
It's hard. Really hard. I think that's also a big mental thing where it's just like, okay, you just did, let's say 40 minutes of tempo like we did basically yesterday, or 35 minutes. Now we gotta get that speed. And I think we're probably going to touch on it later, but then it's the opposite when you go from a speed workout, you still got to maintain that strength. So, and I think we're going to probably talk about that later. So.
I just think about, like, you said, long run speeds. I can just think about Kelly and I racing you. That's one of the ways we've kind of made it fun, was it was like a goal to beat Coach in the strides afterwards, because he's quick. And Kelly did it once when you were sick.
Yeah, long story. Up the hill, up the stairs.
She did it. Kelly gets points for that.
She did.
And Coach doesn't like to lose.
No, Coach does not like to lose. Coach does not like to lose. I got you, what year was it that I was finally fit enough to do it? Was it last year or the year before?
You've done it a couple times.
I officially got it. The first person I texted was Kelly when I did it. I was so proud of myself. But Goose has hopped in on a couple. He's super fast, but he's not good at running straight.
He's not. he thinks we're trying to play, so he tries to bite me.
But he's quick. So Goose gets his strides in too. They're on Strava usually, aren't they?
No, not the strides.
Gotta put the strides on Strava. They don't count.
I think that'd be funny if you put like a watch on Goose and see just his route.
Put a watch on him.
300 steps per minute.
Get his cadence. I love it. Okay, so Sam touched briefly. We pulled the tempos out of that. When we do our workouts, obviously cross country is tempo heavy. We talked in the last training episode that we do a little bit of like focused tempo work, even in track on Thursdays. Us mid-distance people are a part of that, something we get to do. But then we also have the famous front and back tempos.
Is it famous or infamous?
Infamous, I think, is a better word for it. That we have a front and a back tempo that he usually puts in all of our middle distance workouts. Not all of them. There's some exceptions. Do you want to explain what a tempo mile is and then why we do that before we break into some of the different workouts?
Yeah, we do those during cross as well once we start running stuff that's, a little bit quicker. Tempo pace is supposed to be the pace that you can run for an all-out hour effort. So for most men, it's around 10 miles to 15K. For women, it usually ends up being, like 7 to 8-ish type of miles. And obviously more talented women can get closer to the 15K mark as well. So that's how we kind of come to that pace. We use the Jack Daniels formula, the exercise physiologist and coach, not the liquor. But we use his formula as kind of a guide. I have found with most of the collegiate athletes that their true tempo pace should actually be a little bit slower than what some of his stuff says, because I think we can fake our way through 3Ks a little bit easier than adult runners can, or elite level runners can, because most high school training is suited towards the VO2 max and all that kind of stuff rather than the strength.
I feel it's even more true of like middle distance runners, because like
yes.
We're gonna kick, and like that's not a smooth 3Ks. We're gonna kick the last lap, and that throws things off.
Yep. And so that's how we arrive at the tempos. The reason that we do the mile tempo on the front and the back is there's a couple different. So trying to maintain and touch on tempo efforts as often as possible when we don't have the time to do as much continuous tempo work is important, because that at least maintains it. And so I use the analogy of car tires. And we have to put different air into different tires at different levels during the year. And so that tempo, we put a ton of air into that tire during the summer. We put more air into that tire during the fall. We don't put as much air into that tire, especially at this time of year. We've done a better job of that the past couple of years with our Thursdays and trying to manipulate that, but we still don't do 30, 35 minute, 40 minute continuous efforts or 10 by a mile type efforts that we will do during cross country. And so adding those on to the front and the back is a way to maintain and continue to pump air into that energy system, essentially. The other piece to it is I think it's a really good way to extend the warm-up and make sure that everybody is ready to go, that their heart rate is elevated, that they kind of understand the seriousness of what is to come. So that's kind of the front end of why we do it. The back end, and I think both of you can relate or speak to this, after running really, really fast and trying to come back and run tempo pace afterwards is a very difficult thing to do. I always talk about Eduardo Vasquez. He's my favorite example of this. When I was at Sac State, he struggled immensely during the fall with tempo runs. We got to track season and we started doing some more, speed endurance or 800, 1500 base stuff. And it would be really fast stuff, which he was really good at. And then I threw a tempo run on to the end. And it was one of those where I was almost peeling him off the track after he got done with the actual workout part. And he's like, Coach, there's no way. I don't even know if I can run a mile right now. And I'm like, well, I need you to put your flats on and you need to figure this out. And so he went out and ran, and it was not good. It might have been 8-minute pace. It might have been 8-minute pace. It was not very good.
I've been there.
And so he got done, and he's like, did I really get anything out of that? I'm like, you did, because you're teaching your body to clear all of the byproduct out. And you're teaching your body to use all of that byproduct as energy, and it will become more efficient at some point in time. And so a week later, we did another really tough workout, and he tried to do the tempo run on the back, and now it was down to 7:30 or 7 minutes. And then the next week it was 6:30 or 6 minutes. And then eventually got to the point where he was running 5:10, 5:15, 5:20s for his back end tempo runs. And so, and this is within a 2-month period that this is happening. So there's some very quick adaptations that come from that. So twofold on the back end. We can get that extra work in at those paces to kind of maintain that tire isn't going flat on the car. But then we can also manipulate the body and teach it to use that fuel. And so when it comes down to, I think something that our group has always done a very good job of is the last 300 meters of an 800, we usually look pretty darn good. And we're usually able to change gears and go. We're usually able to hold people off, and we have that strength. And I think that's a big part of where that comes from, is just continually trying to touch on that stuff. David is another example, the Seymour. Like, he's gotten a lot better at the back end tempo stuff, and now all of a sudden he's running faster in the 400 as well. And so I'm excited to see what he can do in an 800 this weekend. And Christian Orgel finally broke 2 minutes. A lot of that comes from the fact that I think his tempo work has gotten significant, and he's taken it more seriously. In the fall, he kind of just blew it off and, whatever, I just got to get to track season and try to run.
He's a freshman.
He is a freshman. But he's doing a very good job, and he's adapting and getting better at it. So,
I mean, I'm sure Sam can attest the same. We've all gone through it and experienced it, from like the horrible back end tempo, and just it's a fun thing to watch it come down. We're always promising the underclassmen it gets better and like hang in there, because they like cross on a 7:45 and they're like, what was that? And like, it's okay, it'll get better. And I remember my freshman year, the first time I hit a 6 flat back tempo, I was like, oh my gosh, I did it. Like, that's so cool. And it's super exciting. I mean, even coming back from my injury, I this past month had to go from, I think my first one was about a 7 flat. And then by the time like conference ran around, I was 5:58, I think, and that was like a huge deal again, that each week it slowly gets a little bit better, and once in a while you have a really bad workout, that like a hard workout that knocks you on your butt again, but once you learn how to like get through it, it gets better.
This was Tuesday's case. You have Will Prado.
Also a freshman.
He's I love Will. He's funny though. But I've been there too. I can't laugh at other people, because I think my freshman year we did.
He didn't even try.
No, he was kicking down Katie.
He kicked me down.
And kicked you. Oh my gosh, that is
2 steps.
That's not the ideal way to run it, but I mean, if it works. But I think back to my freshman year, I think we did 10 by 400. It was one of those mile pace stuff. And my second to last rep, I cranked a 57, and I was not supposed to do that. I took what Coach said to heart. He's like, anyone can run this last rep fast. I'm like, I'm gonna rip this second to last one. And then the last rep came. I ran like a 58, and I was like, oh, we're done. And then you said, all right, get your flats on.
The dreaded
tempo. It's like, just like this, like clouds went over the sun. And I think I split 6:15, 6:20. And my tempo pace was supposed to be 5:30s, but it's just something you got to get through it. And it does help. Like now, after tempos, my legs feel so much better. Mm-hmm. It's noticeable for if we do 150s after a tempo. I feel my legs feel so much lighter, so much better. I also think back to junior year Garrick Stanley. He had some pretty infamous tempos. But then his senior year, I remember he was mad at me because I pushed a rep I wasn't supposed to push. And to get back at me, he pushed that tempo mile and he went 5:01 and dropped me, who was like 5:15. And I'm still mad at him, but I'm also like, look how much better he got at it. And when he took it seriously, he's just got so much better. And I think that's something that as mid-distance people, we often overlook the strength piece, especially when you're tired at the end of a workout. You don't want to do this tempo. It's like, you got to do it. You got to man up and do it.
I honestly feel like we could do a 30-minute episode on tempo stories of like, there's just so much character growth there. And like,
we could do a 3-hour episode of Garrick Stanley.
There's so many great stories. And like Will Prado, the freshman we threw out there, he's like, what, a 154, 800 freshman? Like he's not and I think he ran a 6:30 tempo with me. I ran a 6:30 and I outleaned him at the line. So, and it was not a great tempo for me either, but it's okay. It happens.
Are you looking for the sheet?
Coach is going to expose him.
No.
Poor Prado.
He's going to be so mad.
It happened. He'll grow and move on.
6:34.
Sam, just before I move on here, what was your tempo pace coming in as a freshman? You can throw your marathon pace in there too if you know it. And then what is it now as a junior?
Ooh. That's a good question. I want to say you had me at tempo for like 5:35 my freshman year, maybe 5:30 by the end. And my marathon was probably like 5:55. And I was not hitting those. I was not very good at it.
Yeah, it's because that wasn't your real tempo pace. Because once again, mid-distance runners can fake their way through a 3K.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we would have put you out there for a 10-mile run, I don't think you would have been running 5:30 pace. I would have
been lucky to be standing.
What was your long run your freshman year? How far were you going? Like your first couple weeks here?
First couple weeks, probably 11 miles.
So having you try to go race 10 miles probably wouldn't have been advantageous at that point.
Absolutely not. Like I said, it would have been a miracle if I could stand up. And now I think my marathon pace is 5:31.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Something like that. And then my tempo is listed at 5:16. And at the end of workouts, it's hard, but I can hit those splits, and I think that's just so much growth from something I've dreaded to something I dread less. And it like you've been saying, it's something we overlook and something I didn't think of even when coming into college. And when you were saying these things called tempos, I was like, you mean 500's all out? Like 200's all out? Like I didn't even think of this wasn't even in Sam Sikorski's world. And now just to see, that's probably where I've improved on the most in my 3 years, is just being able to hold a pace like that for much longer intervals.
Yeah, I mean, your workout yesterday is a testament to that, and like how much smoother you look running at those paces, and the strength that you've built from that.
My last thought on the tempos is like, it's a fun thing we get to do with the longer distance people too, of like we kind of come back together usually and hit that tempo around the same time. I know you guys have Carter that used to be like your tempo people, or Alyssa and I would work together on tempos. Yeah, they call it Carter pace. Tempo pace is Carter pace for the guys. That it's a cool thing. Then we get to like kind of come back together, and like that's one of their strengths, and getting to use their strengths to kind of help us, because we pull them through 200s and then they pull us through tempo works, and it's kind of a cool like cohesive piece to it and track. Okay, so we've gone over tempos, we've gone over the purpose of finishing with something fast, which is usually then in workouts or 200s or 150s on the back. What are some of these workouts we're talking about when we talk about doing before we happen to run this back tempo? I have kind of getting on the idea of our workouts, trying to be a race like strategy simulation thing, that how we use those paces, and then the kind of general 3 types of workouts we had and what those are.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been thinking about this one a lot too, and somebody that I think helped me grow a ton was Alesha. I think.
Do you know what Alesha hated? Your back tempos. She'd start complaining on the warm up. I sent him a workout and he added tempos to it. Sorry, continue.
She really helped my creative juices with workouts, because she had been with so many different coaches and types of coaches and different people and had ran it at a pretty elite level, and so. I think when the two of us were able to kind of mesh our thoughts together is when I really started kind of coming up with some crazier and creative things. The other one that...
Well, real quick, Alesha is a volunteer assistant coach we had for a while. She went to Miami for undergrad and she did 5 years there. She was a really good miler and steepler. Mm-hmm. And then she helped out and continued training. I think she was at Cleveland State for a year and then Akron for a year. Yep. On her own train, trying to make trials, and then COVID happened. And then we scooped her up after, and she thought she was coming to help take splits. And then Coach said, bring your shoes. And then next thing she knew, she was running workouts. And then she was running all the workouts. And then she was running long runs with us. And then she was pacing races. So she's one of our volunteers.
And then she was racing and running. She ran pretty much at her mile PR by the end of it.
So that's who Alesha is that we talk about here in and out. Sorry, continue. It's about where you got workout ideas from.
Yeah, and so the other one was Coach Hill. So Jordan Hill, who was our old sprints coach, who's an alum of the program, and just getting a lot of ideas on the speed endurance portion, and so kind of melding all of those things together. And there are times where we will do time trial-esque starts to our workouts, and then we will do some speed endurance or on the back, or we'll do like a Sebco or a mini Sebco on the back. We've done that.
What's Sebco?
So the Sebco workout is, there's a couple different ways that you can do it, but the main one is you start with 100, then you run 110 meters, 120 meters, up to 200 meters, going 10 meters at a time. You start at mile pace and you essentially end at 400 pace. And so there's a mathematical formula that you use to get to what each next 10 meters is supposed to be at. So the distances get longer, the intensity gets higher. So that is a Sebco. I have the Brad Hudson little black book that I'll pull stuff from time to time. I have stuff from Corey Stoffregen from DePaul that he used on me when I was an athlete. I have stuff that Coach Brown, Doug Brown, who was my assistant coach when I was at Mount, he coached me a couple years post-collegiately that he gave me. I have stuff from Matt Woods, who used to be the coach at Malone. He coached me post-collegiately for a couple years, so I used some of his stuff. That's actually where I got the front and back tempos from. He's very big into aerobic strength. And then I just have a plethora of other books that I've read and I kind of keep on hand and pull things from. And then just listen to podcasts, and I'll pull things from different coaches who I admire as athletes and things that they say and things that I think will fit, and kind of understanding where we're trying to fit stuff. But speed endurance is one lever that we'll pull from time to time. VO2 is another lever that we'll pull, and then tempo is the other one that we'll pull.
Okay, so break those down.
Yeah.
Endurance.
Speed endurance is more, what 400 sprinters would do, and so we'll do broken 800s. So 3-3-2. We'll take really short rest between the 300s and the 200s, and then we'll take a ton of rest between sets. The 200s we're usually trying to crank down as fast as we can go. And so,
what are the 300s at, like pace wise?
800.
Is that like day 800, goal 800?
Depends on the time of year, the workout that we're doing, what we're trying to get accomplished, how everybody's looking and feeling and all of that kind of stuff. Usually it's trying to be at goal pace. But once again, if we don't look super sharp, then I might pull back and put something at 1,000-meter pace instead of 800-meter pace, and we might do longer reps instead of shorter reps. And so there's different ways and different manipulations that you can do with each of those workouts. And then
how long do you so you do 300, 300, 200, and then we usually take like a super long rest, like it's quick rest, and then we do like whole sets of those.
Yep. And so the sets, a lot of how many sets we do depend on how well your 200s are going. And so if your 200s look really good, then we'll continue to do more sets. And then we can also manipulate and go down to just doing a 300 and a 200 instead of doing 300, 300, 200. So if I feel like things are going well, I want to squeeze a little bit more out, then we might add a 300, 200 onto the end instead of doing a full set on the back end. And part of that is I can't answer it. I can just see it. Mm-hmm. And so I'm watching the different athletes. And so what Sam gets might be different than what Hope gets, might be different what Katie gets or Hastings would get or Kelly would get or whatever. So the VO2 one is just so far encompassing, and there's so many different directions that you can go. We'll throw in workouts that we call them the Holman workouts. So it's a lot of the workouts that I did in college where we'll run longer reps with a ton of rest, but we'll try to run at or close to mile/800 race pace for 1,000 meters, an 800 meter, 600 meter, 5, 4, sometimes we'll get down into 300 meter reps at the end of those, but usually it's, 400 might be the shortest that we would go. So that's one version of those. We can also do 400 meter repeats at 3K pace, and those can be used as tune-up workouts, and I know we're going to get into that in a little bit. But we can also do 1,000-meter reps at 5K or 3K pace as well and take, 2 to 3 minutes rest on those. And so that can start to touch on that energy system as well. But so depending on how intense we want to go and how much I think we need of those, we can kind of get into that too. And then obviously tempo, but we'll also do race simulation workouts where, and some of this kind of comes from Brown and Corey. We're pretty good with both of these, with me especially as a post-collegiate. One of my favorite workouts that I ever did with Corey was I ran a 1,000-meter time trial, ran 2:28, took like a 4 or 5 minute rest, and then did 4 times 400 in 60 or 59 to 60 seconds essentially for 4 of those with 90 seconds rest between them. And I was almost starting to black out coming down the straightaway on the last one. Like my vision was starting to get really small and I would have to close my eyes because it hurt so bad and some of that stuff. But then I was able to go out and run 3:45 like a million times after doing some of those types of efforts. And so we'll do similar things in our workouts. You've run 1,000-meter time trials and then come back and done speed endurance after them. And so we can start to mix and match, and that's where having Alesha around was really awesome for me, is because we would start to throw back and forth different ideas and thoughts, and then I would take her 2 or 3 ideas and I would kind of either mesh them together or put my own twist on them and throw a tempo mile at the back. Or, the one day she had ideas to do a time trial and then do a couple 200s or 300s. And I was like, well, what if we just did speed endurance? And she's like, this is just cruel. Why would you do this?
But and she did get to do them. Like yeah. she had to do whatever she came up with.
Right. But I think, we've seen a lot of success from it. And, I think some of it depends on the athlete and what their skill set is and what is going to make you feel confident going into, and we'll use those as our 10-day out workouts. So the adaptation takes about 10 days. And so usually 10 days out from a really big race, we'll do one of those types of efforts. And so we try to come up with something creative that's new that we haven't done before. I also don't like to repeat workouts very often. because then you can look back in your training log and compare it to your past self, and you are not your past self, and you could be having a really rough week of school, or you could be having something else that's going on, or it could be a really windy day outside and before it was a perfect day. And so really we're trying to get after efforts a lot of the times. Paces can be important, and hitting those paces and feeling good about them, but sometimes the effort is just as important as the pace.
I think for clarification on that too, it's not, you try not to repeat the same workout in the same season. Year to year we do, because we'll go back and we'll look at, well, what were you doing last year at times? So like, even though it might be a little bit different, it's more so within the same season. We try not to run the same workout, but then we will use it as a way to like track across the years. And in a confidence way too. Usually don't pull it out unless it's a, look how much faster you're running, or you're right on pace for where you were last year.
Right.
We try to use it as a confidence tool. So those only come out as needed, but...
Yeah, and so yes and no. Sometimes we will reuse things if I think it can help, but there's other times where I will change it up just enough that it is different too. And once again, that's where Alesha and I will get going back and forth on things and get pretty creative to, hey, this is going to get the same stimulus out, but it's going to be a very different look on how we can get there type of thing.
Yeah. It was pretty dense. I'm going to let Sam talk about any of this workout stuff that sticks out to you, or like, yes, no.
Yeah, so...
You give me a scared look.
So, like you were saying, like, mixing and mashing it, I think I always look back to, like, 10 by 400. Like, sometimes we'll just do 10 straight 400s off of 90 seconds rest, hitting mile pace, and then what we did at the beginning of outdoor season where you split it up into sets. So you'll do a set of 4, get like 2.5 minutes rest, then do a set of 3, set of 2, set of 1, but getting faster. Mm-hmm. So there's that sense. I think one thing that Hope says a lot is that she loves the 800 workouts because she doesn't have to think. It's a lot less thinking. You put paces down, but when you get on the line, it's like you just gotta go. There's no thinking about the pace. It's just going forward. And I think, me personally, I like those workouts a lot more. I think I raced a lot in high school, and we race a lot now. So anything that I can get that's like racing is something I just enjoy. And I just feel like I race better off of those. Like you said, 10 days out. We did what was the Ashland one that we did 10 days out? I think we did 400, I think we did broken thousands 10 days before Ashland. And that whole week I was just like, I'm going to run really fast at Ashland. I'm going to move. That workout is just indicated something's going to go down. So I think those are my favorite kind of workouts. I'll get into specifically later because I know the last question is what's specifically your favorite workout, but I always really like those ones.
Oh. I think about too, and touch on the different mental benefits of some of them. There's a ton of physical benefits of the speed endurance and then time trialing different things that we use that sometimes as a tool of like, what do you need? And sometimes it means like, what do you feel like you're weak in? But sometimes it means, what do you need mentally? What do you need a little bit of confidence in? We just did an episode on confidence, but that's one of the ways we will like, I think you use it as a tool of what area do you need confidence in? Do you need to have a good workout on something? So I think what you talked about, my 1K time trial going into the national meet before a 1500, we ran a all-out 1K at goal 1500 pace, and I went sub 3. I think I unofficially broke the school record, and then we came back and ran that same pace in a 600 and a 500, and then did some really fast like sprints after that, and like simulating that I could hold that pace, and I still felt good enough to do it 2 more times afterwards. Like, it wasn't a full 1500, but I still came back and did a full 600 and 500 at faster than I was going to need to run.
Right.
So like playing with the simulation part and knowing when we have a time trial to like, this is what this race is going to feel like. So like Sam said, the race part of it, of getting to feel like this is what the race is going to feel like, and then you just do what you can to survive afterwards and just make it hurt after. But there's different pieces of then finishing, of like the 300, 200, of as that workout gets harder, or as the 200, that picturing that last 200 of your race. This is what it feels like. It's the whole point is to make it feel like it's going to like hurt, like it hurts by that point.
And to teach your body to deal with it.
Yes, but then part of teaching your body to do is also teaching your mind how to deal with it. So it's like, I think the maturity part of that is as you get more acclimated to some of those workouts, learning how you can like, okay, this is what I need to do in a race, and like finding ways to connect that to your race. I think 500 is a great one for that, because on the indoor track, you go past the finish line 3 times. So like it's a little bit shorter, but that kind of, I have to keep going and like keep holding that. And it's not a total rip, but like holding it. And the same thing, it gets trickier than, like Sam said, the mile pace is something that's uncomfortable for us. We did a week ago 500, 500, 500, 500 with 90 seconds at mile pace. And then we did a 500, 300 workout again this week. And we were all like, it was harder, faster. At 800 pace, we were all like, that was so much better than the mile pace. Because you just have to think about mile pace, like to do that right and not overdo it. And it's a different kind of mental fatigue. So it's just touching on those different things and practicing those things beyond just the fitness piece. Like I don't normally think about the workout. It's more so, how do I survive the workout? Like whatever, to a point you're like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't know, just give it to me and I'll figure it out. But I'm not a ton of help in the creating new workouts. I'm sorry.
No.
But it's whatever you give me, then I figure out how to get through it. It's more so of, I don't know if I've ever been given a workout and I'm like, ugh, maybe minus tempo stuff. 3, 2, 1. When 3, 2, 1 comes out, I'm usually pretty upset. But beyond that, it's more so of a like, okay, so what are we trying to do with this? How do I hit this pace? Like, what is this pace going to feel like? It's more of those kind of questions versus a, well, why? Like, so I don't know if that makes sense or not, but do you have any other thoughts before I ask? Okay, the last thing I wanted to touch on was tune-ups and why tune-up workouts are different. So we still do a workout the week of big races. So we race a lot. We've talked about that a ton. We do big workouts and we'll still come back and race. So this was a 10-day out week for us. We're still racing tomorrow. We're trying to get ready for All Ohio next weekend. Will they have tune-up next week?
Yep.
Okay. So with it being a huge week, it's usually conference, nationals, or a big like mid-season like rip. So that's the All Ohio week is going to be a big week for a lot of people. It's called a tune-up workout on Tuesday. So we're still doing a workout, but it's a little bit backing off, but touching on those paces. I want to talk about what a tune-up is and what that kind of looks like for us.
Yeah, so there's a couple different kinds, and this has evolved over the years too. When I was at McPherson, our tune-up workout was 2x2 mile, 4x200. And we went to the national meet. We had 2 10K guys. We had a steeple guy, and we had an 800 guy, and they all did the same workout. And that was what made them feel really good. When we went into the KU relays, they did it prior to that. When we went into conference, they did it prior to that. So they felt comfortable with that. They really liked that workout, and that's just what we did. When I got to Sac State, those kids didn't react to that workout as well as the McPherson kids did. And so we came up with, and this was a Matt Woods, so I referenced him earlier, the old Malone coach. One of his and one of Hope's and Kelly's favorites is the 2-2-4-4-2-2. So tempo front and back, 2 to 3 150s on the back end, because we're not trying to completely go to the well on this. But really the tune-up workout is just touch on the energy, couple different energy systems. So with the tempo work, we're trying to just pump some more air into that tire, run a couple 200s afterwards to feel fast, but to touch on the strength stuff and really just kind of bolster the strength stuff so that we're good going into the race. It's not as nearly as intense. So sometimes those mid-distance people will bounce back from doing 4 by a mile or 2 by 2 mile pretty well, 4 days later. But the true tune-up workout that everybody thinks of now is the tempo mile, 2 by 200 at 800 pace, 2 by 400 at mile pace, 2 by 200 at 800 pace, tempo mile, 2 to 3 150s fast. And so that is just, by the time we get to that point, we've already done so many other workouts that are these big monster workouts that running a 200 at 800 meter pace feels like you're almost jogging. And that's part of it. I want it to feel good. I want you to feel bouncy. I want you to touch on those paces just enough, but we also give you more rest than we would normally give you between those. So the spirit and the energy at practice is just a little bit higher because everybody's starting to feel pretty good, and might even come down a little bit in mileage and some of that kind of stuff too. So just trying to have everybody feel good and feel smooth running the pace that they're going to go and try and run for the full length of the effort. And we can use it for 1500. We can use it for the 800 as well. There's a different version for the 800 that I would have to look up. It might even be like 100, 100, 200, 200, 100, 100. Yeah. And so once again, I try not to just use the same workout all the time or use it multiple weeks in a row. And so we've also done, there is a tune-up workout, and I can't completely remember it off the top of my head, but it's tempos with 300s between it that our 5K crew will use after doubling the 5K, 10K at conference and trying to race the 5K at Twilight. And that has worked pretty well because we've used that a couple times on some of the guys that have broken 15 minutes for the first time in their life, and they've done it off of running a 10K and a 5K the week before at a really high level, and then less than 7 days later they're coming back and getting after it and running a lifetime PR. So.
Carter and Edward.
Yeah, and then Russo ran his PR. He just didn't quite break the 15-minute barrier. That 3K to 4K, man, it'll get you every time.
I don't know. I think that's a workout I really enjoy. And like you said, you're not supposed to feel like you're going to the well in these. You want to come out of it feeling good. I get a lot of confidence from it. Just knowing that I'm feeling good running this pace. Yeah. Like if I'm running 27s for a 200 or 26, I'm like, that feels easy. That I get a lot of confidence coming out of that. And then, like you said, coming off of a 500, 300, 150, this feels so much easier. Well, not easier, but it's easier to maintain that pace.
Yeah.
And I think you've mentioned this is my favorite workout. But, I think there's also a piece where it's like, it's go time. Like, whenever we do this workout, like, we are trying to rip this weekend, and having that in the back of your head, knowing that this is the pace you got to hit. This is what you're ready to do. And you could either take confidence out of it or be scared. And to me, I take a lot of confidence out of it, so.
I think, like you said, too, the hitting the pace part, I think about weeks that we have done workouts before a big race, and you've like, okay, how does this workout look? I'm like, well, where's the pace? And you're like, what are you talking about? Like, the pace I'm supposed to race this weekend. That I do like the getting to touch on what I'm going to run that weekend, even if it's just a couple things that we throw in there. We did it for indoor conference and then trying to get ready for Ohio Northern's like last chance meet, that I was like, I have to hit that pace. Like, I need to touch on that pace at some point to know what it feels like. And that's a great workout for that and, like, simulating it. Because we were kind of how do we tune up twice back-to-back weeks, but then still, like, hit that pace, because I already used my tune-up workout for the week of conference, and we needed something the week after. But it's a comfort workout for me. I think by the time I get to, like, outdoor nationals, I've sometimes run it 4 times in a season. It's the one that we do get to repeat, and it is fun because you know what it feels like to run it fit. It goes a little bit more like emotional attachment to me. I think about all the cool places we've run it. Like, you and I did that workout together in Nashville, and I did the workout with Mixdorf in, where was it, Myrtle Beach? Virginia Beach, and then I've just done it at Charleston. Like, I've got to do that workout some really cool places. There's a comfort piece to it, and, like, I know what it feels like to run it in December, where it's tough, and then I know what it feels like to run it when you're, like, fit and smooth. So it's a fun energy. I love the tune-ups. Yeah,
that is funny because I did that workout with Kelly in Boston. I've done it with you and a couple different pretty cool places as well. So yeah, it's funny. I never even thought of it in those terms, like the locations of the workout. But yeah.
Or you're getting ready for something big. Like, there's just a weird, like you said, the energy of, like, when we run it and we're feeling good and the energy's high, and it's just usually good things going on.
Yep.
And because I think it's also pre-race too, of, like, whether or not those ended great. It's like the you did the work to get to the point to run the tune-up is always exciting. Like, you're to the point you're going to conference, you're to the point you're running the national meet, you're headed to rip something fast this weekend. Like, you're ready enough to do something that qualifies you to get a tune-up workout.
Yep.
But so it's kind of a cool thought on that, and something that I like about us that I never did in high school. Like, oh, we have an easy workout, but I like that we have a word to it here, and kind of a system, and it builds that routine piece too. Of the routine starts on Tuesday of a big race week, I can count on. I know exactly what my workout's going to be this week, and it just adds to that whole rhythm of that. But yeah, you have any other thoughts? I guess that kind of I answered that. I know this question will probably come up a couple times. I know Anthony and Dylan want to answer favorite workouts at some point, but that is my favorite workout. I know I could probably think of a more difficult one, and I will, but for what I just said and the nostalgia piece of it, it's my comfort workout. I love the 2-2-4-4-2-2 front and back tempos, 3 150s. Yeah. Sam?
What was the question?
Favorite workout.
Oh, favorite workout. Okay. I completely agree with you, Hope, on that. I think that's one of my favorites. But if we're talking about just outside of that, like, I really like the broken 800 workout. I think it's really.
Which one? Sorry.
The 3-3-2 workout, broken eights. I love that workout because it's really hard. Not as hard as a 30-minute tempo, but I love the challenge of it. I remember we did it. I think we did it in December. I think getting ready for Youngstown, and I did not finish it. That was it tested me a lot, and I think that was when you told me we're trying to break 150, and you got to hit this pace, and being able to hit that pace for 3 sets of it, I'm like, okay, I gotta kind of lock in here. Like this is not easy. 150, it looks a lot different than it feels. So I think just having that challenge and just being able to push yourself to limits that I didn't even know were possible. I love hard workouts. I really do, and that to me is the hardest workout, and I think my favorite.
Do you have one?
I've got a bunch.
You've one of some evil ones.
I have.
What if I change it into, if you want to, you could answer either yours or your favorite workout you've given us.
So the workout that I've given you all is my favorite was the Kelly Brennan week. It's not even the one workout. It's the week that she put together. We did 1,000, 2 8s, and 2 6s. And she essentially surpassed qualifying for conference. And like she would have scored in the conference meet in every single event that she ran. She was running with the guys and running in the midst of the guys. Like Isaac was scared that Kelly was going to beat him on each of the reps. Like she just absolutely crushed it. And then we came back and it was a speed endurance workout. So, and it was just a straight speed endurance. We didn't do tempos on front or back of any of the stuff because we did 3 workouts essentially in the week. And so I can't remember if it was 3-3-2 or if it was just broken 5s, 3-2s. I'm going to
say it's 3-3-2 because that's what we recreated.
Yeah. And she absolutely ripped that. Just had a phenomenal workout that day. And then came back 2 days later and we headed down to the Metro Park and we did a 4-mile tempo run. And she was like 6 flat, 555, 550, 540 for her last. Like she dropped me on the last mile. And that week was essentially, that was 10 days out from Twilight because we had a week. Our finals week, we didn't used to have a meet because our conference meet was a week earlier, and then we just took finals week off, and then we had Twilight the next weekend. And so she did it then, and it was and that was the year that she was, surprise, she was runner-up at nationals. Like, at that point, I was like, dude, you're gonna have a chance to go win a national championship. Like, you are so freaking fit right now. And so that was probably one of my favorite weeks of workouts. Just because of the body of work that she put together was pretty darn impressive. It was pretty darn impressive.
Insane.
Yeah. So she went Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday was her week of workouts, and then we did a long run the next day, and then she broke the school record at Twilight, and then I don't think she ran at Mount, and then we went down to Geneva a week later.
Whew.
Yeah.
an exception. We don't normally do 3.
We do not.
That is
We
an
do not.
exception. Yeah. Okay. I think that was it.
Cool.
Only one rapid fire question. Thanks for joining us, Sam.
Oh,
Yep.
Coach, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
you joining in. Hopefully we'll get to do a few more of these and touch on some different event groups and stuff like that, but hopefully it gave you an insight into what we do and how we do things and break stuff up. So
Yeah. Hopefully I can become smart enough to be a regular guest. So, but I appreciate it.
that's definitely not the case. Not the problem.
Not the
yeah,
problem.
Yeah, not the barriers, not the intelligence, Sam. It's not.
Sorry, guys. I got bad. Sorry, Dylan. Sorry, Spraz.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll catch you next time.